Hello there. Today I'm taking a look at a bottle fermented English sparkling wine. So here we have a non-vintage wine. This is Hattingley Valley's classic reserve brut. Hattingley Valley, relatively newly created winery. They're based in Hampshire. Evidently in 2000 somebody called Simon Robinson bought a farm there, and in 2008 decided to diversify into wine. He was quite enthusiastic about this, planted a vineyard, built a winery, and the winery has a 600-ton annual crush capacity, or just slightly over. As a result, they've rapidly become one of England's larger wineries. And they've gained quite a reputation in quite a short time for making, principally for making decent quality bottle fermented sparkling wine like this one. They don't just use their own fruit, they take fruit from growers in Kent, several in Essex and in Suffolk, as well as from Hampshire. And that, helps as a sort of an insurance policy against some sort of dire weather event in one vineyard. You've still got a good selection of vineyards to choose from as alternatives. The winemaker here is somebody called Emma Rice, and the wine is actually, I think, has a lot of the production techniques that you will use in a classic champagne. This particular wine says that it's principally from the 2017 vintage. It's still non-vintage, but I think 63% of the wine comes from the 2017 vintage, and the balance is reserve wine, so wine that's been stored either in tank or some of it in barrel from previous vintages, maybe just one, but possibly 2 or 3 vintages going back. And that's wine that will acquire richer flavours and deeper, probably quite nutty complexity. And an addition of a small amount of this will help to provide a consistent style and additional complexity to a wine. As far as 2017 was concerned, it was quite a difficult vintage for English wine. There was some frosts in late April, and then it was quite wet through until August, but thankfully dry, warm conditions in September enabled the remaining fruit to ripen and remove the sort of the disease pressure that had been from the wet conditions. As a result, the wines have quite good acidity, which makes them ideal sparkling base. In terms of making the wine, they started off by whole bunch pressing, which gives you nice fine juice. I don't know whether they collected pressing fractions or not. If you were making a champagne, you would be keeping the best juice from the earlier pressings and maybe using the later pressings for other wines, or perhaps selling them off. I don't know if they did this. The wine, 15% of the wine fermented in old Burgundy barrels, wine barrels that will give very little oak character, but will give a different temperature situation because you haven't got cooling in a barrel, so it'll get slightly warmer. You get slightly more complex flavours from barrel fermented wine, perhaps slightly richer flavours, and the balance fermented in stainless steel tanks. Malolactic conversion was only partial, but so malolactic conversion softens the acidity of the wine a little. It turns the harsh malic acid into softer, milky lactic acid. The blend on this is, let me see, it was 45% Chardonnay, 35% Pinot Noir, with 20% of Pinot Meunier, or Meunier as we're supposed to call it now, because evidently it's not as related to Pinot as was always assumed. So that's giving a relatively equal portion of the different contributions those grape varieties give. So Chardonnay will give lift and freshness, Pinot Noir will give length and body, and Meunier will lend a sort of a roundness to the mid-palate, which helps a wine age slightly earlier. The wine stays in the bottle in which it was fermented after its second fermentation. So you add the yeast to the bottle with the wine in there, you add the reserve wine at that stage, and you allow the fermentation to to take place in the bottle with a crown cap on it to secure that. This wine stayed with its yeast lees in the bottle after the end fermentation for about 4 years. So that's the sort of quality and amount of time that a good non-vintage champagne will spend in bottle. Lesser non-vintage will spend less time than that. So, there's some quality commitment in terms of that. The wine is bottled with what they call a dosage, so a certain amount of sugar added just to balance its acidity. But with brew on champagne, you're allowed to have up to 8 grams per litre of sugar. This only has 3, so actually that's quite a low dosage, and should leave the wine sort of fairly fresh. So let's have a look at it, shall we? I've got this in a standard wine glass, so actually there are persistent small bubbles rising, but they're less easy to see in this because they're not rising quite as far. They are certainly there and they are persistent, so that's a good sign. The wine has a medium lemonish yellow colour. It's quite bright and clean. Smelling it instantly, I'm talking about brioche yeast notes, almost creamy notes, maybe a slight amount of citric freshness, but it is that clean yeasty brioche note. There isn't a sort of developed yeast extract note or something like that. It is sort of quite lifted yeast notes. There's a nice freshness to the aromas. So let's have a taste. On the palate, it's dry. I was talking about the malolactic conversion being partially blocked. There is still some quite mouth-watering tart malic acid giving crispness to the front of the palate, which makes the wine quite sort of lifted and lively. Behind that is coming a sort of some more rounded character. There's yeastiness. There is that sort of lovely sort of slightly creamy brioche note. There is a creamy texture. The bubbles are fine and they're adding to that as well. There's a mouth-watering freshness, but the tartness that you get on the attack has subsided by the back palate, and actually there's quite a harmonious length of flavour there. There's a nice complexity. It's not a massively rich style. I would tend to be thinking that this would could be served really well as an aperitif style. It would be enough to go with sort of smoked salmon canapes or something like that, because it's got the beautiful acidity to cut through. There's enough weight to go alongside food, but I wouldn't want to serve this as a sparkling wine of gastronomy with a main course. So yes, as an aperitif, that would be absolutely lovely. I think the quality is good, and yes, I think that's a wine you could probably age for 3 or 4 years, because there's so much complexity in that yeastiness that would build on that and it would gain some more richness. So thank you very much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed the video. Do please follow us on YouTube, and do like and share the video. Then hopefully we'll see you again. Bye now.